Hey guys, it's Toxic Titan Gaming, and today will probably be the last of the MTG basics videos. Because at this point, there's really only like one thing left to talk about as far as I can tell, and there's it's gotten to the point where I think everything else can be explained like as I'm going along, which will mean that I can actually like make some content rather than doing this, which technically is content, but you know what I mean. So I can actually play a game rather than just talk to a camera the entire time. But maybe you like this. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. But today we're going to talk about some abilities that some creatures can have. Specifically creatures. There's lots of like weird text bits that go along with spells, and I'm not going to worry about that kind of stuff. What I'm worried about is those bold words that show up on cards, like here and stuff. So I'm gonna try to educate y'all on what some of those mean. They're fairly simple, but I just wanted to make sure you knew about some of the basic ones. I've got 10 written down to make sure I hit them. And we're going to start out with one of them that shows up a lot on specifically this front page, and that would be Lifelink. Lifelink is that whenever you deal damage to a creature or a planeswalker or something, the Lifelink means that whatever damage that creature deals to whatever it's attacking, you get that much life. So, for instance, say you have 20 life because you haven't been hit all game, and you played out this Charmed Stray, and it's turn 2, your opponent has nothing on the field. You attack with this 1/1, and you deal 1 damage to them, and you gain 1 life because you have managed to deal some damage. And even if the creature doesn't get through to like the opponent, if it gets blocked by a creature, say they've got like a 2/3 or something, and you've only got a 1/1, but you decided to, and they're attacking you, and you decide to block with your Charmed Stray or your Beloved Princess, one of the things, you will still get that 1 life, and that attack doesn't go through. So it's kind of a good way of like building up yourself while also potentially like having good ways to get value out of blocking and that kind of thing. Another thing that shows up on this page a lot is flying. Now, flying means that there are only 2 types of creatures that can block flying. There is other flying creatures or creatures with reach. And I'll go over reach in a little bit. But flying is kind of a way to get around a lot of large things. Like, I know in green, a lot of stuff does not have flying. So, and it's a lot of the larger things, like the dinosaurs that you can play and all that sort of stuff. There's mammoths, there's just giants in general. And they don't have flying, so that means that you can play these like smaller flying creatures or larger flying creatures and get over those kinds of obstacles for you. The next one that I believe I have on here is, I'm gonna make sure I'm spelling it right, Death Touch. Now, Death Touch means that if the creature deals any sort of damage to another creature, the creature is destroyed. It's a very, very easy way to also get value out of blocking. For instance, with this Vampire of the Dire Moon, there's a lot of times where I'll kind of hold that back instead of attacking with it, just because I know they won't block it, so I can get that lifelink. But if I hold it back as a Death Touch lifelink, it means I get double value out of it, first of all. But second of all, it also means that if they attack with anything that I don't want to come at me, I can send this little 1/1 and both creatures will die. So it's a pretty good way to guarantee some value out of stuff. And then we've got this one actually has a few, so I'll go ahead and cover this because I have the other two that this has on my list, so I'm going to go ahead and stay here. Questing Beast, first of all, it's an amazing card because it has all this stuff. Vigilance means that whenever this attacks, it will not have to tap, which typically that happens, but that means that the Questing Beast can also be used as a blocker the same, like in your opponent's turn just after you've attacked with it. And it's really, really, really handy. Having a bunch of Vigilance stuff, which is typically, I will say, a white mana focused ability. Like a lot of you see a lot of Vigilance in like the white mana creatures. But that paired with haste, which means that the turn that you play Questing Beast, it can tap and attack and all sorts of stuff. Which granted, Questing Beast doesn't tap when it attacks because Vigilance. But there are some creatures that have like tapped abilities, and you can use those right out of the gate if it has haste. Otherwise, it tends to have what's called Summoning Sickness, and that means that it just can't do anything on the first turn. Now, I know I mentioned Reach. And Reach, basically, all that Reach does is it means that it can block flying creatures. Now, you can get a little bit tricksy with this because sometimes you can forget, like, a card has Reach. Typically, for some reason, a lot of creatures that have Reach are spiders. I don't know why, but a lot of times, it's spiders. It's a ton of spiders. Granted, there are some other ones, like there's a giant dinosaur that has Reach. But that's the only dinosaur that I know of that has Reach. And there's the Cavalier of Thorns, which has Reach for some reason. But it's just one of those things. So it's a really handy ability. It's one of the ways that green can get around the whole flying thing. And then, while we're here, I'll also talk about Flash. Flash means that you can play out the creature anytime you would play an instant. So that means that really any phase of the game except for like a handful, good grief, it is early. A handful of times you can play this card out. So you could play it at, like, your opponent could be attacking with a 1/1 and you could be like, no. And then play this out on their turn. That way you can use your mana on their turn and still get it back for yours. It's kind of a handy ability to have. And then I believe we just got a few more left. There is Trample. Now I know this one has it for sure. I'll pull it up like this. So Trample, well, you can't see the thing that it says along with it, so I'll just leave that. Trample means that if a creature is blocked, any damage over what the creature could block, like, for instance, if you block the Gnarlback Rhino with a 1/1 creature, whoever you're attacking, or whoever is blocking, is still going to take 3 damage. Because that 4, the 1 gets subtracted from that 4, and whatever is left over is still dealt through. So it's another way to get through a lot of blockers. And typically, I will say, there are a lot of green creatures that have Trample. Although, obviously, there's lots of other colors that can get it too, because there's white, black, red, green. The only one that's here that doesn't really have it is blue. So it's a very, very nice ability to have. We're going to head all the way back this way because we're going to talk about Indestructible. Indestructible is fairly easy. Anything that says the card is destroyed, it's not destroyed. And so for instance, like if you had I know at least one card that is a very simple card, Murder. Destroy target creature. If a card has indestructible and you use murder on it, it will not die. So that's a very neat way to get around the whole. It's a neat way of keeping some of your key cards alive. Like I know a lot of the gods from Theros have indestructible, which makes sense because they're gods, and so that means they're tough to kill. But you can still get rid of them because, for instance, I have seen there are cards that will do like minus +1/+1 counters, or -1/-1 counters, I guess. That would make a lot more sense. If they do -1/-1 counters on it, like if you put 5 -1/-1 counters on Heliod, it would die because anything with 0 toughness still dies because it just can't stay on the field with 0 toughness. So there are ways around indestructible, but it's a little bit more finicky. And the last one I believe that I have is Defender. Defender means that a card cannot attack. Granted, it's typically cards like this that have 0 attack and some higher number as their toughness. So it's used sort of as a wall so that you can block creatures that are going to cause you troubles, especially early game. Wall of Runes is a really good one because it's a very cheap card that has a good effect and also can block for a good long while, at least for the first couple turns. So I believe that is all I had on my list. And I was hoping that this video would be a little bit shorter because the other ones have been the time that they took to say about them. So I'm not disappointed about it being a shorter video or anything. So I hope this has been useful, and hopefully the next time you see me in Magic the Gathering, it will be to actually play Magic the Gathering instead of just tell you how it's done. And granted, I'm not perfect at this, so if you want to know all the ins and outs of everything, I know I keep saying this in the basic videos, play Magic the Gathering online. It is free. It is made by Wizards of the Coast, and it gets updated pretty much whenever there's a new expansion, like that they just released, like in the actual stores and stuff. So yeah, I would recommend it for any person who wants to play, whether they're a beginner or whether they've played for years. It's just a good way to actually be able to play Magic, and it's a good way to be able to play Magic with people you can't play paper Magic with. So yeah, I think that'll do it for this video. Thank you all for watching, and have fun, play games, and take care.